West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Your party leader, Chuck Schumer, says he's moving, quote, full speed ahead with this package. Will he have your vote?
And that's fine. He can. He will not have my vote on 3.5, and Chuck knows that. And we've talked about this. We've already put out $5.4 trillion, and we've tried to help Americans in every way we possibly can. And a lot of the help that we put out there is still there, and it's going to run clear until next year, 2022. What's the urgency? What's the urgency that we have? It's not the same urgency that we have with the American Rescue Plan. We got that out the door quickly. That was about $2 billion, $2 trillion. And on top of that, all the things we've had with the CARES package, everything leading up to that. So we have done an awful lot, and there's still an awful lot of people that need help, but you have 11 million jobs that aren't filled right now. 8 million people are still unemployed. Something's not matching up. Don't you think we ought to hit the pause and find out the vulnerability that we have, Dana, right now? We don't know what happened with this COVID. It's awful coming back the way it is with a vengeance. We don't know about inflation. We know it's running rampant right now. I can tell you in West Virginia, inflation's running rampant. And on top of that, the challenges we're going to have, geopolitical challenges. Shouldn't we be prepared?
So I want to ask you about a lot of that, but are you saying it's the price tag, it's the timeline, both?
It's the urgency. Do we have the urgency to do what they're wanting to do in such a quick period of time?
But can you be specific? Okay, let's talk about the dollar sign.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific number in mind?
Here's a number you should be getting to. First of all, I have agreed to get on to the reconciliation because that's the time for us to make financial adjustments and changes. I thought the 2017 tax code and tax law, the way it was changed, was very, very, very unfair, and it was weighted to the wealthy.
So what's the number?
And the bottom line is what the number would be what's going to be competitive in our tax code. I believe that the corporate rate should be at 25, not 21.
But what's the overall number for the budget bill?
I think that you're going to have to look at it and find out what you're able to do through a reasonable, responsible way.
So then how do you know that it's not 3.5?
It's going to be at 1.5. We don't know where it's going to be.
So you think ballpark 1.5?
It's not going to be at 3.5, I can assure you. But with that, whatever it is, once you have a competitive tax code that you can compete globally, and then you should look at what the need is. What's the urgency and the need that we have?
And I want to get to that, but just because this is the thing that people consume. Do you have a ceiling?
My ceiling is this: the need of the American people, and for us to basically take in consideration inflation. Mm-hmm. No one's concerned about the debt. Our debt as of Friday was $28.7 trillion. And we're not even talking about that. No one's talking.
So you just said 1.5. It sounds like 1.5
I'm just saying
trillion
that
is your
basically,
number.
I've looked at the numbers. If we have a competitive tax code from a non-competitive, it doesn't help the working person that was done in 2017. That's in the 1.5 range, okay? If that's where it is, shouldn't you be looking at what does it take now to meet the urgent needs that we haven't already met?
Okay, so let's talk about how this would be paid for. The White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, told me on this show last week that you are, quote, very persuadable on this budget bill because he says it will be paid for. It won't add to the debt. It won't add to inflation.
Well, if you're paying for it with inflated numbers from the standpoint, is the tax code, the numbers that they're wanting to pay for it, and the tax changes they want to make, is that competitive? Does it keep us competitive or not? I believe there's some changes made that does not keep us competitive.
Meaning, don't increase taxes on corporations.
No. I want to increase taxes on corporations. I've spoken to corporations.
So what specifically are you saying?
I want the wealthy to pay their fair share. But if you're up higher to the point to where you are that can be competitive globally, then it's going to be counterproductive. Everyone's looking at this in a whole complete different way than I think maybe I am or other people, or other people are just keeping quiet. The bottom line is, do we have the urgency to spend another $3.5 trillion right now? The most urgent thing that we have to do is get the bipartisan infrastructure bill that's gone left unattended for over 30 years, deferred maintenance throughout every part of our nation. That's the one. The president went out and campaigned on that. That's his bill. We worked it in a bipartisan way, got 19 Republicans to vote for it. That's the bill that should go out immediately.
Okay, and you have another side of this negotiation and some of your fellow Democrats, which I want to get to in a second, but let's just stay on what they call here in Washington the pay-fors, how your fellow Democrats want to pay for this. They're looking at increasing the corporate tax rate, closing existing loopholes, raising taxes on wealthy Americans, trying to get money back from, get the IRS to get money back.
I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that.
And they say they can add that up to 3.5 and there will be not a dollar. This is what they're saying.
I understand, but we just
added to the debt.
Just disagree.
You just don't believe them?
No, I don't believe them. I'm just saying that those rates are not going to be competitive to find out the money. Here's the difference. They're looking for 3.5 trillion. I'm looking for a competitive tax rate. Okay, I want to make the adjustments and changes. They're looking for basically.
What does competitive tax rate mean? Can you
globally competitive? Then you have to be globally competitive.
Right,
you can't be.
But can you
first of all,
explain?
You can't be at 39% as far as capital gains. I said 28 all in. Okay, you can't be at 28 or 30 or more with a corporate net. I've said 25 all in, and I think that every corporation should pay a minimum of 15%. They should all pay something. I believe in that. But the bottom line is, the need that we have, you understand they put no restrictions whatsoever or qualifications on any of this as means testing of the need of the people, the means testing. How many people have you had talk to you that said, they're sending me checks, I don't know why? We've all heard that.
Okay, I want to get to some of the specifics in this in a second, but you just said that you want to get the infrastructure bill that you helped to negotiate, a bipartisan infrastructure bill. It passed the Senate. You want to get it
and
through
the White House was very much involved every day.
But as you well know, dozens of House progressives are saying no, they're not going to vote for your infrastructure deal until you support what we're talking about here, the overall budget bill, which has a lot of the president's agenda, a lot of Democrats' agenda in it. By digging in your heels on this, aren't you dooming your own infrastructure bill?
Who's digging in the heels here? First off, the infrastructure bill has been passed, okay? You have a bipartisan bill with 19 Republicans. Who thought that could happen? Who thought that? And we worked hard on that for many, many months, and the president's team was very much involved. And the president went out and sold this around the country. Why would you basically let the perfect be the enemy of the good? You have a bill right now. I'm not saying we're not going to get to a reconciliation bill whenever.
But they have leverage.
The urgency now.
I guess they have leverage.
Go home and tell.
Just like you have leverage. They're using their leverage, the House progressives, just like you are.
That's fine. And if they can go home and tell people that, hey, I don't care about the roads and bridges, you don't need it. I don't care about internet service, you don't need that. I don't care about fixing water and sewer lines. I don't care about the hard infrastructure that's deferred for the last 30 years. I don't care about any of that. I can't go home and say that in West Virginia. We need all of that. We have the worst bridges in the country.
Do you take this threat seriously by the progressives?
They'll have to do what they have to do. I mean, I'm not involved with the House and the House rules or any of that. Okay, they're going to do what they think is best. And if they play politics with the needs of America, I can tell you, America will recoil.
And they say you're playing politics.
I don't think so. But the bottom line is, if it's such good politics and they think 3.5 trillion, why are they rushing it now? Why don't they use that for political?
All right, let's talk about what's in
campaign trail and say, elect for me, and we'll spend 3.5.
Let's talk about some of the specifics, because I want to get to the substance of what we're talking about here, because I don't think that gets enough attention. What President Biden and the Democrats say is the child tax credit, which has been expanded, make it permanent. They're saying it's already having a major impact on poverty and hunger for children. Do you support making it permanent?
Well, I support child tax credits. I sure am trying to help the children.
But the expansion
Let's talk about this before you start saying, is it going to be permanent, this and that?
Yeah.
Let's see how we're doing. Let's make sure that we're getting it to the right people. Let's make sure the people on poverty. I can tell you, people that are working and working poor, making every effort they can to get ahead in life, that's in that 50,000 and below. I've got people that making combined 200 and 300 and more up to 400 saying they're getting checks. You know, if we have X amount
But
of
it's on a
dollars,
sliding scale. They shouldn't be doing that.
well, it's happening, though. This is happening because of the sliding scale. It's 75 and 150 with a sliding fee up to 400. Okay? These are things that there's hard caps to be put. The need-based, we're not having anything about need-based. We're not doing any type of that. And first of all, child tax credits. Think about this. If it's child tax credit, you want to help the children and the parents that are basically providing for those children. There's no work requirements whatsoever. There's no education requirements whatsoever for better skill sets. Don't you think if we're going to help the children, that the people should make some effort?
So let's talk about universal pre-K. West Virginia, your home
I've been all
state.
for that. I'm all in.
You want to make it a federal
Well,
program.
it's fine to be federal, but the states can do it too, and the states have a
But
responsibility.
should
the
universal
federals-
pre-K be in a bill like this
I
that
don't
you
have
would
a
support?
problem because I support universal pre-K.
Okay, what about increasing funding for home care services for the sick and
We have
elderly?
$60 billion hadn't gone out the door yet. $60 billion. The only thing I'm saying is, why urgency to spend another $300 billion towards that when you got $60 billion that hasn't gone out? Don't you think we ought to find out what happened? Why are we not able to get into that type of a chain to where we're able to make sure that the administration is able to disperse the money and get it to where it needs to be helped?
Clean energy provisions that are in this bill, they would use tax incentives and carbon capture technology to try to cut emissions in half and make the electric grid 80% clean energy by 2030. Do you support that?
Let me tell you this. Let's look at where we've come in the last 20 years. In 2000, year 2000, 52% of our electricity came from coal. Only about 16% came from natural gas, and only about 9.5% came from renewables. 20 years to date. Okay, 2020, 19% from coal, 40% from natural gas, and up to 20% for renewables. The transition is happening. Now they're wanting to pay companies to do what they're already doing. It makes no sense to me at all for us to take billions of dollars and pay utilities for what they're going to do as the market transitions. We've proven that, and we will continue to transition. They're accelerating something that could be very, very vulnerable to the reliability
So
of
it
this
sounds like a
country
no.
needs.
You don't support the
Makes no
provisions
sense at all.
Okay.
It is Monday, the 13th of September of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. Yes, we had a weekend, and this happened to be a weekend of, well, an ominous anniversary, and you know which one that is. And so we got through it in spite of the, well, shall we say, unpatriotic behavior of a certain national party who, well, pretty much wants to destroy America as we know it. Okay, well, we got that going for us, which is nice. Happy Monday. So, all right. Well, they had the VMAs. So there was something that was that could take our attention away from, well, you know, the moroseness of the weekend. And you could have paid per view that boxing match. Was it a boxing match? I still don't know who won. I think it was Evander. I think they said Holyfield won. I think. I don't know. But seemed like a rather ridiculous event to be having, period, let alone on September 11th. But who am I? Who am I? Okay, well, I guess I'm a critic. We all are on Mondays, aren't we? Okay, yeah, so we had the VMAs, which I did not watch, but in the sidebar on Twitter, they had a lot of, trending articles or trending pieces about the VMAs. Mostly, of course, the dresses that the gals wear. You know, no one ever talks about the guys. Now, I did see Lil Nas coming in with a entourage carrying a train on his gown, so that was interesting. But no one said who was the designer. I still haven't heard. So it's always the gals. Megan Fox was wearing something very similar, apparently, to what one of the Kardashians, Kim, Yeah, Kim. Wore a few years ago. They call it a muggler. I think that's the designer. Anyway, that's fine. Kind of sexy, as they say. But that wasn't really on top of my agenda. We also had the opening of the NFL season. Yes, football is upon us before baseball has even ended. Indeed, as it always has been and as it always will be. It hasn't always been, but, since baseball expanded their playing schedule enormously. Did you know that at one time they only played 63 games total? That was it. Not anymore. Play lots and lots more. Anyway, it's the beginning of football season, and I got to tell you, I used to have great fun running as fast as I could right into people. It was fun. Now I look at it, and I got to tell you, it's a little boring. I don't know. Maybe I've changed. Maybe I've gotten older. And maybe I know what it feels like to run as fast as you can into somebody. Ouch. It kind of hurts. Anyway, checked in a little bit on the football games, and I just thought it was kind of boring. I don't know why. Well, I have my suspicions. Now, a lot of you out there probably have no idea why anyone would enjoy football, and I think I'm understanding it now. It's kind of boring, Guys running into each other as fast as they can, knocking them over. Why are they fighting over that ball? Well, I'll tell you. It's to teach us about the importance of property now, isn't it? Indeed. Okay. Well, what else did we have on the weekend? COVID spiking. We have here in Oregon a few frontline workers, state workers. No, they're state workers, because the state has mandated that they got to get vaccinated. And so 5 of these workers are claiming they have, quote, natural immunity to COVID. There's no such thing. But they're going to go to court and argue that they have it. And scientific and medical experts will testify that there's no such thing as natural immunity. But they're going to bring in a chiropractor and probably a Botox injection strip mall owner, claiming and testifying that actually natural immunity is what they have, because, hey, anybody can be an expert now. Just say you are. All right. Well, there's that. What else? So much over the weekend. It all kind of just runs onto each other after a while, too. Yeah, that lawsuit brought by Oregon state workers is also reminded me that the county commissioners in Josephine County just right next to us, have been actively participating in teaching their constituents how to break the law. I don't get it. Isn't government supposed to, adhere to the law rather than break it? Now, we will speak a little bit more about what the state, departments within the state are telling their employees. I guess they'd be employees. You're going to like it or not. We have a story coming up about that right here in Oregon, as a matter of fact. But this Josephine County, and also not as much, but Jackson County, my county, has also been very anti-vax, anti-mask. And I should mention also that I do live in a hotbed of general anti-vaccine sentiment already. We already had measles spikes here because of a bunch of idiot parents who say, hey, vaccines are going to make my kid autistic. No, they're not. Okay. But they believe it, so it will be true. And they can always blame it on the vaccine rather than, well, some other environmental issue. You know, like, what about the water around here and all the mining with arsenic and everything else and mercury? Give me a break. People are still doing it, and people are fighting to do it, and then complaining that a life-saving measure is the reason that their kids are autistic. And it was all a big conspiracy to, I don't know what, put chips in us. If they're going to give me chips, can you go a little bit lighter on the salt? You know, I mean, I don't want to have a blood pressure problem later. Oh, not that kind of chip. All right. You know, as Jim Justice said on the clip that we had on the Tim Corrimal show. Yeah, I was on the Tim Corrimal show again this week. Had a couple of weeks hiatus, you know, because there was a holiday last week. Anyway, Jim Justice, no relation, by the way. As far as I know, I sure hope not. Justice is my grandfather's, well, it'd be my great-grandmother's maiden name and my grandfather's middle name, and that's how I got it as a middle name, too. Indeed. Anyway, old Jim Justice is quite astounded about these anti-vax measures and that people better just start, you know, hey, he's concerned now, and he ought to be. So we got some issues here. I fear that we might be losing our grip on this great experiment. Okay, well, you know, they say you're not supposed to determine the outcome of an experiment. It's supposed to run its course, and I am not very happy about the course this experiment is running to. Amy Coney Barrett gave a speech at the McConnell Center last night and decried, oh, these people think that the court we're just a bunch of partisan hacks at the McConnell Center. You know, the Grim Reaper who presides over the place where democracy goes to die. That Grim Reaper who pushed through Amy Coney Barrett's nomination before Ruth Bader Ginsburg was even buried. The same Mitch McConnell who kept, how many? 3? Well, he presided over a system that prevented Obama from filling judicial seats up and down the whole court system. So yeah, Amy, we view the court as filled, the conservative court, as filled with partisan hacks because you are. Now she's claiming, I know, we're not hacks. We're partisan professionals. We were groomed specifically for this. We're not hacks. And that would be true. The conservative court has been groomed specifically to do what they are doing. Federalist Society. You know, that is a group that ought to be disbanded and their principals thrown in jail for actively destroying or actively participating in the destruction of American democracy. And the Heritage Foundation, too. But the Federalist Society has been packing our courts. Now, I know that it takes, you know, their legislative representatives to do it, but remember when Trump said, I'll just seat every Federalist Society judge they put in front of me, and he did. And Mitch McConnell pushed him through. And Amy Coney Barrett is concerned that people are going to think they're partisan. We don't think it. We know it. Please. I'm tired of this paternal bullshit like, oh, we're the electorate and we're too stupid to know. Well, maybe your constituents are too stupid to know. Last time I heard, the numbers are down around 22%. That's their base. And somehow, they're less than a third. They're less than the toxic third. But, oh, they be much more potent in terms of their caustic properties. That is what is driving the Republican Party to become actively involved in the destruction of our government, our form of representative democracy. and, dare I say, America itself. Don't tell me we didn't tell you so, because we all did. And but we're a bunch of hippies, so what do we know? Jeez, I don't know. I hate being right. Every single time. Well, actually, I love being right. It would be better if folks actually listened to us and heeded the warning and the call. That's our lot in life, I guess. What's on the rest of the menu here? As we had a pretty big, Joe Manchin there. Yeah, he's running the show. Wow. Okay, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. That Exxon money goes a long way, doesn't it? And don't for one moment think that we don't know, because we do. Well, he's going to vote no on the $3.5 trillion bill, and he just cannot explain why. And Dana Bash did push him a little bit, though I think it would have been better for her to push him a little bit more. On the rest of the menu, GOP lawmakers are urging their constituents to use violence to push back against the Biden vaccine orders. Yeah, what's up with that? An inmate on death row for 15 years, exonerated by DNA and released from prison, has died from COVID-19. And leaders of the Oregon School Boards Association admonished anti-mask school board members to follow the law, like it or not. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where several thousand people protested in Serbia, demanding a ban on lithium mining that has made the region one of the most polluted in Europe. And oil-rich Norway goes to the polls, with climate on the agenda. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Should also mention Kelly is getting ready for a virtual Netroots Nation again this year. We normally have a physical presence at Netroots Nation, but with the pandemic raging still, they've decided to do it virtually once again. But we will have a presence at Netroots Nation. Thank you, Kelly, for doing all that you do. If you would then look across the page, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com to the left, from that chat room link, there is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, I cannot tell you how much it helps. Because we have to pay our bills. And I got to tell you, we need your help to do so. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send the funds from that to us once a month, we're able to stretch those dollars beyond compare, pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this powerhouse of resistance against forces, domestic and foreign, arrayed against the Great Experiment. We will not let it happen, and we are a bulwark against that, and we thank you for your generosity in, building up our bulwark. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you could do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. Get that posted up on social media like Twitter and other platforms that you know who they are. You do. You can follow the show on Twitter at CookbookWest, and do please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes. really wherever podcasts can be found. They're everywhere. Little stuffed up. Looks like ragweed is the pollen of choice out there in the world right now. And I've been sneezing a little bit. I've been trying to hide it, but I'm a bit stuffed up, and I apologize. Emily Singer of the American Independent brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Ash Mondays. Republicans are up in arms about President Joe Biden's new plan for what the White House calls a path out of the pandemic. The plan includes requirements that all federal employees, workers at hospitals that receive Medicare and Medicaid funding, and workers at companies with 100 or more employees be vaccinated against the coronavirus or undergo weekly testing. Some GOP elected officials and candidates have called for citizens to revolt against the requirements, which are intended to get the still raging COVID-19 pandemic under control, while others have called Biden's move authoritarian, even though the U.S. government has been implementing vaccination mandates for more than 170 years for children entering school. Currently, more than 1,500 people in the United States are dying of COVID per day on average, with data showing nearly all of those deaths are among the unvaccinated. Representative Dan Crenshaw, who himself was subject to multiple vaccination requirements during his years of service in the Navy, railed against Biden's new policy. "Are you people trying to start a full-on revolt?" Crenshaw tweeted. "Honestly, what is wrong with you? Democrats, leave people the hell alone. This is insanity." They're so convinced that we don't exist, that we are not really people, that we are a scourge upon the face of the earth and we must be eliminated. Unbelievable. Ohio GOP Senate candidate Josh Mandel used violent rhetoric in a Thursday night tweet. "Do not comply with the tyranny. When the Gestapo show up at your front door, you know what to do," he said. Hey, buddy, the Gestapo is you. Gestapo didn't go door to door to tell people, hey, we got some like healthy things we want you to follow, because we want you to live. They never did that. Please. A number of Republicans are calling Biden's mandate authoritarian and unconstitutional. It's not a mandate. You got a choice. Get vaccinated or get tested. We're trying to stop a pandemic, damn it. Supporters of Biden's orders call that a false accusation, meaning the authoritarian and unconstitutional charges, noting that the Supreme Court has ruled that vaccine requirements are constitutional. In its decision in Jacobson versus Massachusetts in 1905, the court determined that it is within the police power of a state to enact a compulsory vaccination law. Of course, with this partisan conservative court we have now, they don't follow precedent. They just make up law as they go along. So what are they going to say about this? Attorney Mark Elias tweeted out about the ruling in Jacobson. Real liberty for all could not exist under the operation of a principle which recognizes the right of each individual person to use his own, whether in respect of his person or property, regardless of the injury that may be done to others. Now, Representative Ronnie Jackson, you know who he is, the drug dealer doc, who served as the White House physician to both Obama and Trump before running for Congress, tweeted, Biden's authoritarian announcement to impose illegal vaccine mandates on businesses is chilling. The decision to get vaccinated should be between you and your doctor, not illegally mandated by President Biden. This is outrageous. And yet, the Texas government is getting between a doctor and a woman. Representative Brian Donalds, another repug, this time from Florida, made similar comments, tweeting, "This un-American and tyrannical decision isn't about science. It's about political science in the form of tanking poll numbers. Biden went from saying no mandates by the federal government to this unconstitutional order that would coerce inoculation. Stop the authoritarian mandates." Among those expressing support for Biden's executive orders was the American Medical Association. With the spread of SARS-CoV-2 Delta variant, alarming increases in COVID-19 related deaths and hospitalizations, and our health system and physicians stretched thin, the AMA is pleased by the administration's significant efforts to help get this pandemic under control, the AMA said in a statement after Biden's announcement. Aggressive measures will be needed to prevent further widespread transmission of COVID-19. Mary Lynn Smith of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, by way of the Oregonian, brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Damon Thibodeau escaped death row when DNA helped exonerate him of a murder he did not commit. Then COVID-19 killed him. "It's so unfair," said Steve Kaplan, a retired Minneapolis attorney who helped free Thibodeau after he spent 16 years behind bars, 15 of them on death row in Louisiana. "I'm struggling to make peace with it, but I can't." Thibodeau, who moved to Minnesota to restart his life and eventually settled with his family in Texas, died on September 2nd of complications from COVID-19. He was 47. But a third of those years were spent behind bars for his wrongful conviction. Thibodeau became a long-haul trucker after restarting his life. He was on the road in early August when he landed in a Jacksonville, Florida hospital with COVID, a few days after getting his first dose of a vaccine against the disease. After 3 weeks in and out of intensive care, he was expecting to be released. "Bro, I'm ready to get out of this place and come home," he told his younger brother David on the evening of September 2. Those were nearly the same words he said to David just days before Damon was released in 2012 from the notorious Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola. But just a few hours later, David's phone rang. A doctor asked his permission to stop resuscitation efforts on Damon. A nurse came on the line and explained that Damon's lungs had collapsed and his heart had stopped. "We've been trying to resuscitate him for the last 45 minutes, the nurse told him. "We've got no response. Can we stop resuscitating?" "My heart sunk," David said in an interview last week. "I wasn't just being asked to let my brother go. You're asking me to let my best friend go." Damon was a 22-year-old deckhand on a Mississippi River barge in July of 1996 when his 14-year-old step-cousin went missing while he was at her family's apartment. After the girl's body was discovered along the river, Damon was subjected to a long, grueling interrogation that pushed him to confess to a crime he did not commit. A year later, he was convicted and sentenced to die. After he had sat on death row for 15 years, a team of lawyers, including those from the Minneapolis law firm Fredrickson and Bryan, helped prove Damon's innocence, noting his confession did not match the physical evidence, that witness statements were inconsistent, and DNA tests showed no connection between him and the murder. When the district attorney's own expert concluded that Damon had falsely confessed to the crime, the conviction was overturned and he was set free in September of 2012. Damon came to Minnesota to restart his life with the help of Kaplan, then an attorney with the Fredrickson and Bryan firm, and a contingent of other guiding forces. Life had knocked him down so many times, said Fredrickson's law firm president John Konek, and Damon had every reason to be angry and bitter about what life had handed him. Instead, those who knew him marveled at his resiliency and optimism. A kind and gentle soul with an easy smile, he was as gracious as he was grateful. Damon got his first dose of Moderna early last month and then hit the road the next day, delivering freight from Waco, Texas to Chicago and then New York. When he reached Florida, the intense pain on his right side was almost unbearable. After dropping a load of freight in Jacksonville on the 10th of August, he went to the hospital, where he collapsed in the emergency room. As he battled COVID and pneumonia in Florida, his 64-year-old mother in Texas fell ill and rushed to the hospital, where she slowly recovered from COVID. Damon also began to improve and was told he would be released from the hospital within days. Hours later, doctors and nurses were working furiously to resuscitate him, unsuccessfully. Of the Oregonian brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Leaders of the Oregon School Boards Association admonish school board members across the state to uphold their oaths of office and follow all laws, even those they disagree with. They conveyed that message in an open letter signed by the association's executive director, president, and the head of its board members of Color Caucus that took clear aim at the notable number of school board members who have directed school employees to defy mask mandates intended to keep children safe from COVID-19. It also called out, without naming them, the 4 members of the Newburgh School Board who directed their superintendent to ban display of Pride and Black Lives Matter symbols in Newburgh schools. We are lamentably seeing a remarkable number of board members doing their very best to ignore the law or openly defy it, Director Jim Green and members of the Color Caucus head Sami Al-Abraduba wrote. Such behavior is simply unacceptable. We are duly elected leaders of our communities, all of whom also serve on a local school board. We set examples for young people. We call on Oregon's more than 1,400 school board members to carefully weigh the consequences of your actions, to heed your oaths, and lead by example. The letter comes on the heels of dramatic school board actions to defy what some members feel is unacceptable overreach by Governor Kate Brown, the Oregon Department of Education, and the Oregon Health Authority. Oregon has a long tradition of local control of public schools, which are governed by elected local school boards, but also subject schools to state laws, executive orders, and administrative rules. Brown and the 2 state agencies have required universal mask wearing in schools, made being vaccinated a condition of employment for school employees, and required school boards to pass Every Student Belongs policies that call for full inclusion of students regardless of race, disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. In addition to the anti-LGBTQ and anti-black votes by the Newburgh board this summer, the Albany School Board fired Superintendent Melissa Goff after she championed racial equality, and the school board in Adrian fired its superintendent after he indicated he would enforce masking rules. Well, that brings us to our break, and why don't we go to our break? And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, skipping tropes. It's 1973 and Marvel Comics introduces Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. Made by all white guys, modeled on Bruce Lee, Shang-Chi is the rebel son of Fu Manchu. Yeah, he is. He works with MI6. His fellow agent is casually racist. It's all that and more. So when making Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the modern-day Marvel MCU mechanics looked at this god-awful Orientalist, yellow peril colonialist mess and scrapped it. The only thing they kept is that our beloved Shang is hiding from his father, the leader of an international shadow league of assassins. Of course they kept that, you say, because it's one of our dearest overtired, overused tropes, dudes and dames with daddy issues. Now you'd think that, but part of what makes Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings so great, and it is great, is that instead of being about Dear Evil Dad, what we focus on is a family torn apart by unprocessed grief. Okay, you should now say, then it's the other one, our favorite Hollywood melodrama menace, The Family in Jeopardy. But like a Tai Chi master, Shang-Chi again deftly sidesteps boring cliche, because in that trope the family is more important than anything, and disparate members must refine their love for each other and reform the family unit. Happily, Ten Rings does not give us such simpering simplicity. Rather, it uses this family to show that either societal pressures or personal shames and fears keep us from accepting both the positive and negative sides of our histories, and thus of who we are. Until we accept those sides, we cannot progress in life. And I can see a little Chinese dualism here, balancing yin and yang, but also, this theme from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings seems tailor-made to speak to America's struggles right now. And yes, the bus fight, and yes, the scaffold fight, and yes, the lovers fight, and the MCU cameos and karaoke and Awkwafina and Tony Leung, and when we finish our journey, may we all have magical kung fu goddess Michelle Yeoh to welcome us home. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the third trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day Rhode Island Governor Theodore Green demanded that federal troops be sent to crush a textile strike in his state. The general textile strike, then in its second week, stretched across the Piedmont from New England to Georgia. Green declared, quote, "We are face to face not with a textile strike, but with a communist uprising." His demands came after days of pitched battles between thousands of strikers and the Rhode Island National Guard in Salesville and Woonsocket. Secretary of War George Dern assured the governor and the press that 3,000 combat troops were ready and available for immediate duty in Rhode Island. President Franklin Roosevelt declined to send in federal troops, but the state assembly authorized the governor to close the mills and appropriated $100,000 in funds to beef up state police forces. The governor then directed Rhode Island's police chiefs to round up all communists on charges of inciting riots in textile centers across the state. It gave local authorities the pretext to round up and arrest over 200 alleged agitators, strike leaders, militants, and radicals. Over the course of 4 days, 3 strikers had been killed, including Charles Gorsinski at Salesville and Jude Cordomenci at Woonsocket. Hundreds had been seriously injured in the 2 cities. 7 of the 16 strikers who had been shot by state troops were near death. State National Guardsmen had been given the shoot-to-kill order to protect the mills and the scabs. Once the governor shut down the mills, police forces easily arrested dozens of flying squadron picketers and established martial law-like conditions, though it was never officially established. Within days, the strike would be quelled in Rhode Island.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 50 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of around 80. Some clouds this morning, giving way to generally sunny skies in the afternoon. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows around 50. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10. Mainly sunny tomorrow with highs around 90. Winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus have not been updated over the weekend, but up to Friday after the show, we did spike once again to 197,081 people infected, and our deceased remain currently at 230. Ragweed pollen, as I mentioned earlier, is moderate right here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 39 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is still high, though at a fall level of 6. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.14 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 90%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that are crowdsources from around the world, and we know that as the Weather Underground. London is 68 and partly cloudy. Paris is 80 and partly cloudy. Rome is 87 and sunny. Kyiv is 76 and fair. Kabul is 70 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 82 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 75 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 52 with heavy rain. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and sunny. And New York is 80 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that are crowdsources from around the world. Marko Vojinovic of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Several thousand people protested in Serbia on Saturday, demanding a ban on planned lithium mining in the Balkan country, as well as a resolution to scores of other environmental issues that made the region one of the most polluted in Europe. The rally in downtown Belgrade was organized by about 30 ecological groups who recently gained popularity in Serbia amid widespread disillusionment with mainstream politicians and amid major pollution problems facing the region. The protesters held banners demanding protection of Serbia's rivers, nature, and air, which they say have been endangered by profit-seeking government policies and decades of neglect. The protesters later blocked one of the main bridges in the capital for a while, as they announced several other blockades in the rest of the country in the coming months. More than 100,000 people have signed a petition against international Rio Tinto Mining Company, which has sought to construct a lithium mine in the western parts of the country that is rich in the mineral used in the production of electric car batteries.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Mark Lewis of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. North Sea oil and gas has helped make Norway one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but as Norwegians head to the polls today, fears about climate change have put the future of the industry at the top of the campaign agenda. The ruling Conservatives and the opposition Labour Party, which is leading in opinion polls, both advocate for a gradual move away from the fossil fuels that continue to underpin the economy. But the larger parties rarely rule alone in Norway. Smaller players are usually required to build a majority coalition, and they can have outsized influence on the government agenda. Some are demanding a more radical severing with the country's dominant industry and income stream. A report in August from the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change predicting global floods and fires created a wave in Norway that has crested throughout this election campaign. It is also forcing Norwegians to wrestle with a paradox at the heart of their society. With their hydro-powered energy grid and electric cars, they are among the world's most enthusiastic consumers of green power. But for decades of exporting oil and gas means this nation of 5.3 million enjoys a generous welfare buffer and sits on the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. The oil and energy minister says it's unthinkable that the country should force an end to the country's biggest industry, which is responsible for over 40% of exports and directly employs more than 5% of the workforce. Some 70% of all new cars sold in Norway are electric, with consumers continuing to benefit from government subsidies, and the government has signaled that environment taxes will rise. Earlier this month, it also proposed a tweak to the existing tax regime, where some explorers will have to shoulder more of the risk of searching for oil. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tombe, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.